Hey Thrivers, you're listening to Season 2, Episode number 10. Today, Mara Clements is filling in for Christine, and we are so excited to be joined by a well-known Lancaster entrepreneur and business coach. She is the owner of Prince Street Café, Passenger Coffee Roasters, Blue Line Lancaster, and their parent company, Commons Company. With years of experience in growing businesses, investing in downtown properties, and managing a team of employees, we cannot wait to welcome Crystal Weaver to the show today. I have a list of questions I've been dying to ask Crystal, from how she got started to how she knew when it was the right time to delegate tasks and to grow her team, and so much more. Keep listening because this is an episode that you don't want to miss.
Welcome to The Thrive, a podcast for working moms. This is for all the women and moms listening. If you work from home, in an office, run your own business, or are the CEO of your family, this podcast is for you. Because at the end of the day, all moms are working moms. Rachel and Christine invite you to celebrate the victories, get advice, listen to their mom fails, and to know you aren't alone, to thrive in your everyday life.
Welcome everybody, this is Rachel. I am so excited today to be joined by not one, but two lovely businesswomen. I have Mara co-hosting with me again. Say hi.
Hi, guys.
If you haven't been listening, Mara has been on the show a few times, and Mara is the owner of More Space Professional Organizing here in Lancaster. And we are joined by a special guest, Crystal Weaver, today. Crystal, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm Crystal, as you just mentioned, and this is my first time doing a podcast. So give me grace in that, but I'm happy to be here. I am the co-owner of Commons Company here in Lancaster, and you might be more familiar with our brands, Prince Street Café and Passenger Coffee, and we have a catering company and a bakery and a few other aspects here in Lancaster City.
That's
Thanks for
awesome.
having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I have been to most of your cafes, and I found out that you were sort of joining Inspire as a coach this year.
Yeah.
So that's how I became more familiar with, that's the lady behind all these businesses. And so I was really excited when you said that you would join us.
Sure.
As far as your businesses go, give us just a little background before we dig into, how one thing maybe led to another and became all these different companies. Are you from the area originally? Tell us a little bit of background.
Yeah, I grew up here up in Lancaster County, Millersville specifically, on a family farm. It's been handed down through the generations, my dad's family, and I was lucky enough to have a mom who wanted to homeschool all of us. There are 5 kids in my family, and she homeschooled all of us all 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And for the purpose of, she really always believed that every child learns differently. Everyone has a different personality and a learning style. And she thought she could give us an individualized education and a unique experience if she had the opportunity to teach us. And it was a fantastic experience because I was also on a farm. So that meant like when I wasn't doing actual textbook things, I got to be outside. And as a kid, obviously creative play. And then as an older teenager, got to work alongside my family in their businesses, which is a big deal, and taught me a lot of things. So it was a fun way to grow up. And then when I was 18, I moved to the city, and I've been here ever since.
Oh, wow. So you said that you helped in some of your family businesses growing up. Like, what were those?
Everything was agricultural. So my dad is just an entrepreneurial guy. I don't think I knew that at the time. Now, looking back, I can really appreciate his drive to continually improve things within the farming context with the way that he farmed, the types of crops that we grew. Most of them were for animals, but then he also raised a lot of tomatoes, so 100 acres of tomatoes. It was like this dominating thing that we all got involved in, from selling them alongside of the road to just making the whole thing happen then as we grew bigger in the farm. But then he also bought and sold other people's crops, so there was opportunity to learn admin and finance within all of that, and interact with customers, even though those customers back in the day were just like other farmers that he was engaging with. And to this day, he's still that way. He bought Pineview Dairy about 5-6 years ago and continues to expand the things that he does, even in years and years and years of farming, always doing something new. So it was a fun way to grow up and learn from an entrepreneur in my own family.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love Pineview Dairy. I used them for raw milk a while ago. Do they still do that?
I don't know if they do raw milk anymore.
Okay.
I've never had it. Have you had raw milk?
I have. I'm not a huge fan. Growing up, my neighbors we lived in like a sprawling neighborhood. So we did have neighbors that we could walk to, but everyone had a little bit of land and they had goats. And they would do like raw goat's milk. And like, I just remember being grossed out by it and I've never really gone back.
Goat milk is pungent.
Yeah. Maybe that was just like not the right way to start with raw milk, but whenever people talk about it, because I know it's kind of a thing.
Doesn't it have health value?
Yeah.
Why did you buy it?
Why did I buy it? I think when I found out I was pregnant with Malachi, I just wanted to eat clean and whole foods. And so I did a ton of research, and that was one thing that looked like it was the good thing to do. And I don't do it anymore, but
no, I know a lot of people that are into that, and my sister has a dairy farm, so if I ever wanted any, I'm sure I could get my hands on some. Yeah, but I just can't get over that old goat's milk thing.
I didn't grow up in it. I mean, I would imagine I would have tried it if I had grown up on a dairy farm. That wasn't happening when I was around, so perhaps I would have been into it, but I've never been a big milk fan in general.
I've milked a goat before.
Oh,
I'm sure you have, right?
No, because we didn't have goats, and again, we didn't have the dairy until.
Okay.
So when you say that your family had purchased Pine View Dairy, it's the entire dairy operation, or is it more of like
store.
So it's a store as well.
There?
No, that's why I was asking.
Kids. They have a great little country store.
Oh, that's
so fun.
They
sell ice cream in the summer. Well, ice cream all year round, but it's especially popular in the summer. You can take your kids and sit outside, and you can also go pet the baby cows.
Oh, that's fun.
People travel to get that ice cream. It's good.
It's
I don't know
where you live, but like 5 minutes south of the city.
Oh, that wouldn't be far for us. No. I just grew up on like the opposite side of the city. Like if you're listening and you're from the Lancaster area, I grew up out towards like Denver, Adamstown. Oh, yeah. Like it was probably closer to go to like shops and stores in Reading versus like driving all the way into downtown Lancaster.
Yeah.
So when I got married, I moved to Lancaster, actually lived downtown for a year, and then we live in Manheim Township now. But I feel like I'm still learning like this side of the county.
Yeah.
So I'll get there. I'm going to put that on my list of places to go this spring with the kids.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your career. You mentioned that you grew up having this entrepreneur of a father to look up to, but how did you get into cafes? Like you mentioned, you're not a huge milk fan. Were you always like into coffee?
Interestingly, I was wondering about that. Neither my mom or my dad enjoyed coffee, and I don't think to this day they do. So it was never in our house.
Oh, that's so
I don't
funny.
think I had, and cafe culture wasn't. I'm old enough that cafe culture wasn't a big thing when I was in high school either. It wasn't like my friends were all like, "Oh, let's go to a cafe somewhere." Yeah, probably like maybe early 20s. That Square One was the place that was cool, and everyone wanted to go to Square One, and that was like my introduction to coffee, and was a good experience, obviously. And now I drink coffee all the time, of course, but I definitely wasn't part of it.
She literally has coffee in her hands right now.
Actually, truth be told, it's tea.
Oh no!
Tea. Well, see, here's the thing: it's coffee in the morning, and then I switched to tea. I also really, really enjoy tea. I think when I got started in coffee culture and owning a cafe, tea was like this afterthought. It felt like every coffee shop had to just kind of have tea because you should, because there's some people who don't like coffee. But now, particularly at Passenger, we source a lot of really beautiful teas, and by virtue of having people on my staff who understand tea and can help you celebrate it and get the nuances of it, shall I say, I love tea, and I'm as interested in it as I am in coffee and can enjoy it in some of the same ways. So if you're not a tea drinker, go to Passenger sometime and just ask them for a tea experience, because they'll help you perhaps think about tea in a different way than just like the little green tea.
Tyler convinced me to try the Chinese breakfast tea, and there was a whole story behind it, a whole presentation of it. And
did you enjoy that Passenger?
Yes, that's what I get every time now.
I need to do that because I love tea. I prefer it over coffee just because the caffeine, whether I'm pregnant or not, like the caffeine does not sit well with me. Like maybe too because my husband, he prefers it like so dark. Yeah. He's got like immunity to it. Like he does the keto coffee, makes it as dark as he can. Wow. He adds all kinds of like MCT oil, butter. Like I'm telling you, not to be TMI, but like if I drank his whole cup of coffee, I would probably poop in my pants. It is so bad. And so even when I drink regular coffee, I don't like the way the caffeine makes me feel. But tea tea is just great. I love tea.
Oh, I had a question about the coffee beans that you source, because I know that Kyle, your partner, goes to the different countries, or at least one country.
Actually,
You
not Kyle.
Weren't you just traveling for coffee?
No, but I have, but I don't need to. Okay, so the whole story. David actually is a good friend and the guy who came on board with Passenger from its inception. In fact, it was his idea. He reached out to me randomly and was like, hey, I didn't know him at the time. He was like, hey, have you ever thought about starting a coffee roastery? And I said, yes, but you have to know what you're doing, and I don't know what I'm doing. And so I just it's not really my field to get into, but he did. So he asked, would you want to do the business side of it, and I'll come develop this business for you. So really what you see of Passenger today is his brainchild and his direction and his expertise and knowledge. And he's a coffee and tea nerd. He's the kind of guy who, when he decides he wants to know something, he goes the nth degree to know every little piece of information there ever was to know about it in a really meaningful way, which is awesome for us, because it's allowed us to develop a really a quality experience and a product, that I'm proud of. So he is the one who does the coffee sourcing, and he also has brought Kyle with him. Kyle has traveled to see, to visit source, as I have as well. So we'll go with David. Like, David is the one who knows these farmers. We will get to go along and experience it, which is really meaningful. But we're not the ones who are making any decisions on that trip.
Okay.
He's the expert. We're just along for the ride.
That's awesome. So what you're mentioning here sounds like it takes a team to run all these businesses. Oh, yeah. So for someone that might not be from Lancaster, Passenger is that one of your newest?
Yeah, do you want me to go through the whole line?
Yeah, walk us through them. But if you aren't from the area, or if you plan to visit Lancaster, or if you do live here but you've never been there, I love Passenger. It's just so cute. It's right off of, you can get there from Market Alley, like if you're going to Market, or it's right along, what is that, King Street?
Yeah. Some people, if you're familiar with the Press Room restaurant, it's right across the street from that, in that same the 0 block area of the square.
Yeah.
And across from the hotel.
Definitely check it out sometime. But I would love to know, how did this all start at the beginning?
So I didn't grow up drinking coffee, right? Remember, that was never really part of my experience.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have experience going to coffee shops, not much to speak of. So it wasn't this thing that I had always imagined myself doing. In fact, I can't really say that there was any one concept that I thought, from a business standpoint, that I wanted to open a certain kind of a business someday. I think I was interested in being my own boss and developing my own thing, but I don't really know that I knew what it would be. So I owned a stand at Central Market first. Before all of that, worked a variety of jobs that were really actually helpful even to this day in terms of what I learned in each of those places, particularly related to finance and admin. I knew some from what my mom taught me. She's fantastic. She still processes all of their payroll and everything within their business. And so I learned a lot from her, but then got more experience in these other offices. I then owned a market stand at Central Market, and I sold candy, which was really random as well. Not something that I ever dreamed of doing. I don't even really like candy, but this was a cool opportunity. I just found out the stand was for sale. It had been owned by a family for a long time. It was very well established, and it seemed honestly, it seemed like a really safe first business to have on my own, because it was already developed, and it was in a place where lots of customers already come to Central Market. And candy store, everyone loves a candy store.
Is it the one that's still there?
Yeah, the large candy stand.
Wow.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was a really fun experience, and it also it introduced me to a lot of people downtown, because so many people come through Market, and part of the charm of Market is that you talk to the stand holders and they talk to you, and you develop this relationship. So I got to know a lot of people by virtue of doing that, and because I was in that downtown area, I kept walking by the building that Prince Street Café is in now, and it was sitting empty, and it sort of started by an interest in buying real estate downtown and wanting to own a commercial building. And here's this empty building. And then also this random idea that some friends and I were kicking around about having a coffee shop. And it was really just what sounded like a fun idea. But the further we kicked it, and the more we talked to some others who had some similar vision, we decided we should actually do this. Here's this empty space. And it worked out that we were able to buy the building and to develop this cafe with some friends who also had a vision to have a coffee shop downtown. And that's how it got started. Fairly naive. Actually, totally
How
naive.
many were in the group?
There were 4 business partners.
Okay.
when we first got started.
And
it was
it?
actually awesome
Timeline
for
wise.
me. I was early 20s, and for me,
Okay.
at that time, 2 of the business partners were my parents' age, and my experience up until that point with that generation had been that they were often the ones cautioning me about things like, well, that's never going to work, or be careful about that. And these guys were very supportive and were like, well, I think you can do this. We're here to help you, or we're here alongside of you. It was a bit of a different approach. And I respect them to this day for how they were able to work with 2 of us that were a lot younger, and we did it together.
Was
as
this
a
around 2005?
2005, 2006.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Like, how long ago was that?
2006 is when we opened,
Okay.
September of 2006. It took about 9 months to get everything together from the time that we bought the building. It was sitting empty / had been used as a thrift store, I think, before we bought it. Then a church used it for a period of time while we were working on our business plan. And then we turned it into a coffee shop.
So
Go ahead. No.
I was just going to say, I
Do you remember this?
I was auditioning for a Sight and Sound theater, and I met this girl who was talking to me about opening a coffee shop. They were going to call it Prince Street Café. And so when I finally met you in person, I thought maybe I'd met you before, but no, must have been one of your friends. Or was
I
it?
wonder who it was.
What?
I
Mara?
can't think.
All I can think of right now is all you auditioning for something.
I know. I'm scrolling through my mind.
I got on the callback list, but I didn't.
Do you sing?
make it.
Was it like a...
I do. I'm not like someone who'd be a lead, but
That's so cool. Fun fact
Yeah.
about Mara.
That is a fun fact, for sure.
One
I
day.
can't think who it would have been, but
Hmm.
that's great. You heard about it before it was even a
Yeah.
thing.
Mm.
You know, we had the worst time thinking of a name for that coffee shop. We had
I wanted
so
to ask
many.
that.
Yeah, we had so many ideas, and it's interesting making decisions too with 4 business partners because you all have different ideas, and then after that we had 2 very different generations, and none of us could agree on everyone's alternative ideas for names. So we just decided, why don't we call it what it is? It's on Prince Street, and it's going to be a cafe. Let's just call it that. And that was one thing that none of us could really hate on it because it just was what it was.
Yeah.
No creativity to it, but that's how it got named.
I feel like it's stuck though. Like when I think of it, it's not like a duh kind of name. Like it has a nice ring to it. Like whether it was on Prince Street or
So
not.
I'm curious,
like,
we had this
good.
discussion in our office the other day. Do you think about Prince Street Cafe as is that name a connotation for a location or a thing, a concept that you have experienced?
A place, and a place. I think it's iconic now. I really do.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
use
not
it to go in
necessarily
Lancaster.
geographical. It's a experience that you've had.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
think
that
that was
was
like
my
the
argument
cafe.
as well.
And I will use it sometimes if I'm trying to tell people like where something is because I feel like
You know
it's
where
well
Prince
known
Street is,
enough.
right? That's what we call it. We call it Prince Street. We don't even
Yeah.
call it Prince Street Cafe.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Despite the fact that there's also the street that is Prince Street.
And there's tons of other shops on there.
Yeah.
No, but
We
that's
don't say
the place.
Fulton. We say Prince Street. It's by Prince Street. That's funny.
That is really funny.
Huh.
It's interesting too that you mentioned like 2006 is when it opened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like that must have been like a popular time. I just remember I was still in high school at the time. I was graduating, but I remember it was like becoming the cool thing to go hang out at the I was in Lancaster, the New Holland Coffee Company, because they had just opened, and I had a couple friends that like got part-time jobs there, and it was like becoming the cool thing.
Did you guys go to Coffee Co. out in Lancaster Shopping Center? Because they've been there forever.
No.
I mean,
Oh, by the Giant?
By the Giant.
I live close to there now, so I will pop in, and I actually know that they just, a couple years ago now, like they went through like a transfer of ownership, and the owners go to Worship Center where we attend, so sometimes we'll pop in just because we know the people, but I don't know, it's kind of narrow. I like to go in and like grab.
I like how it feels like everyone knows everyone there. So that was the place, that and Square One, those were the 2 places that I went to before I owned my own shop. And so I went randomly. I mean, it has probably been a good 6 years since I had been in that place. But the other day I was just like, where can I go? I just want to go somewhere different. I don't want to go to my own places. And I went back there, and it was really fun from a nostalgic standpoint. And to watch everyone in the space, clearly they come here all of the time. It has such a nice feel to it. I always love places like that.
Yeah, they definitely have regulars, and it's just, it's not necessarily the most kid-friendly place, which is why we haven't been there as often. Because it just is a little narrower. It's a little more crowded. And so, yeah, with my kids, I need a little more space or like a place in the corner. But
is that why you took
the coffee and the food there is delicious.
Of the Prince Street? Was there a fireplace there?
There was, yeah. We just took the fireplace itself out in this last renovation that we did. But we took the soft seating, comfortable area out in the one that we did about 6 years ago.
Okay.
So kind of over time. Yeah, initially I need to look up some photos. There's somewhere of the original, if you can remember it when it first opened, it was red and yellow and brown colors, and there was soft seating and a fireplace in a kid's corner.
Like in Friends, Central Perk.
Yeah, a bookshelf with all kinds of books and magazines and games. It was fun. We used to do live music back in the day.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
Oh, man.
And you still feature different artists there.
We still do that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's been a thing that's going on from day one.
So what kind of clientele are you trying to draw in there?
Well, so when we got started, one of the things we all hoped was that we would create a space that all generations would feel like they wanted to come to, and that it wouldn't just be a youth group hangout. And we just hoped that there would be a lot of diversity and people who came, and there was from day one, and there continues to be. You can sit in there on any given day and you will just see a wide range of people. So that always makes me happy. It's been true from the very, if it wasn't true from day one, I don't know how you change those kinds of things, right? That's just people are going to come. Whoever's going to come is going to come. And thankfully, it's always been a really diverse group of people.
Yeah. I feel like that just from the handful of times that I've been there. There's people that are working on their laptops, and then you might have like a table of like younger people that are just hanging out. Then you might have people on a date. We've been there with just like a couple of friends and
older people headed to the Fulton.
Yeah, it's in a good place.
Mysterious characters. I feel like it's part of the charm. It's a downtown coffee shop, so you never quite know what you're going to find.
And everyone likes coffee. I mean, most people will go for at least a hot drink. So I feel like...
And you hire great people there, too.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all very friendly and knowledgeable. And
I actually had a question when you mentioned hiring. Tell me about, let's talk about how Prince Street turned into where you're at now. Like when
we got derailed. Okay.
I know. There's just so much.
Well, it was fun to reminisce about Prince Street.
Yeah,
it's always fun for me because I live very much in the future, not so much in what has happened in the past. So this was fun, but. Yeah, so 3 or 4, it's 4 years in. We had all agreed initially when we started together that we would try to stick together for 5 years, regardless of what happened. Through the process of that, those 5 years, I ended up taking most of the leadership of day-to-day operations, and everyone else had other significant things happening in their lives that they were attending to. They were still involved in one way or another, but it ended up being pretty much mine to take care of. And I am not much of a maintainer, so as we were coming up on 5 years, I was feeling this this was fun, but I have to reinvent it, or I have to do something new, or I have to be able to see a growth plan for this for me to want to stay engaged. So as I spun that around, I felt like it did become a time where I chose to do this type of work because I felt like it was a good fit for who I am as a person. I could recognize that it's like fun on an entrepreneurial level, but it also allows me to engage with people. And that's like the significant thing for me that brings me, joy, meaning, the opportunity to connect with people who work for me. So I felt like I chose it at that point, and I asked my business partners, hey, if I keep doing this and I have new vision for it, would you allow me the opportunity to buy you out? So they did. Okay. Very, very agreeably, wanted to support me and see me do it. So then I was on my own for a few years, and that's when we did the renovation of the space. And so now it looks very similar to what that rendition was. And about a year or two after that is when we decided to start a coffee roastery, when I was contacted by my friend David, and we decided to start Passenger, to start roasting coffee for ourselves. It doesn't make sense to roast coffee, financial sense, to roast it just for yourself. You need to have a vision to do wholesale, which he did. And we also had a vision for growth, within our own company. I don't think we knew at the time how that was going to unfold. But that was kind of the next big step, was to start Passenger. And we actually also, it was kind of one of these serendipitous times where a lot of really important relationships came together. I met Kyle, my current business partner, he was a customer at Prince Street, and he was working in tech at the time. So he was sitting in there. He was one of those guys who was in there all day long on his laptop working, and got to know him through a mutual friend. And he said he had a building that he was trying to lease, and it just turns out over a long series of things happening that we ended up leasing his building in his backyard for our coffee roastery. And through doing that and working alongside of him, realized we share a lot of common vision for the city, and he was interested in getting involved in some more tangible types of businesses, not just tech, not living in his computer all the time. And long story short, we had decided to become business partners and do things together, which was a pretty big decision for me to make, because I had already decided I wanted to do things on my own, had been on my own for a while, and then now I was making a choice to take someone back in again. But it was a choice I made with the knowledge that we could do a lot more and have a lot more fun trying new things than I could probably ever do on my own. And that's been true, as you can see.
That's awesome.
Do a lot of new things since then.
So is that the space that is now Commons Company?
Yes. Yeah.
Companies?
So that building is kind of the headquarters for everything. It's on Marion Street.
Okay.
It was an old warehouse that he renovated. It has our kitchen and our bakery in it, and we just recently turned that into an entity of its own. So that's called the Commissary of Lancaster, and it prepares all of the food and pastries for all of our entities, but it also does some wholesale for other cafes. For instance, we sell soup to New Holland Coffee Company.
Okay.
Fun little connection.
You sell really good rice bowls to Copper Cup.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I have a friend that works at Copper Cup. That was kind of where I worked for the past year.
Really?
Until having an office here at Inspire.
Got it.
And so I feel like I've tried everything on their menu, and she does, a friend of mine, Bethany, who's actually been on the show, does all of their social media. So she goes between.
She does a great job, by the way.
Yeah,
she does.
Because she does all their
It's
pictures.
fantastic,
She's
yeah.
a photographer, and she will go between Copper Cup, and they own Cake and Cup.
And then tomato
pie.
Yeah.
So she was telling me how, some of the food comes from Commons. Yes.
Yeah. That's okay.
I'm like, this is so hard to keep track of.
You can just say Commons, but you can't think of anything else. But
yeah,
the commissary does do some of that. They have their own bakery. Cake and Cup is their bakery.
Right.
So they do, and we used to buy pastries from them. We're all connected in one way. And then they don't have kitchen space to do things like a rice bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So that segment of food for them, they've given us the opportunity to prepare for them. We don't do a lot of wholesale. It might be something we do more of in the future, but for now, that is the kitchen and commissary in that same space as the coffee roastery, as well as our offices.
Okay.
And training lab for baristas when we're doing training for passenger.
That's so cool.
Oh, and our catering company. We have a catering company called Merrymaker Catering. Also kind of new. We've been doing catering for years and years out of Prince Street. But it always felt like it was just, we never could do it in a way that we were really proud of, because the cafe is set up to serve cafe customers, not to do big orders for catering. There's not much room back of house at all at Prince Street. So the opportunity to develop it into its own thing and have it be just corporate drop-off catering seemed like it made the most sense for us. So we did that within the last 2 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then there's another cafe that I saw on your email signature, Blue Line.
Yes.
That's the one over by F&M.
Yeah.
When did that come into the picture?
2 years ago, so September, whatever, would have been 17.
Okay.
We were invited in the spring of that year to consider the possibility of coming onto campus and occupying an existing cafe that was there and work as a subcontractor to their food service company that they have on campus. It's a unique experience. It's independent in certain ways, and then in other ways not, because we're on a campus and we're under a lot of their expectations and their hopes for how we would serve their students. So you could go there, and as the general public may go to the cafe, most people don't, particularly not during school year, because it's just overrun with students. But it's been an awesome opportunity for us, and really, really well received with the students, because they're eating what is tends to be more institutional food. It's large scale format. It's not necessarily locally sourced. Sometimes, I shouldn't say that. I do know that the campus tries to source local when they can, but for certain, we have more time and energy to spend on crafting a quality food item for the students, and the customer service experience is doesn't feel quite as corporate, I think. So the kids love us there, which has
How
been
late are you guys
great.
open?
Midnight.
See, that's smart.
We have to be because we're on a campus. Actually, that was
Okay.
their requirement that you would be open.
But I love that
Until
Prince
midnight.
Street is the place where we go if we want to go out late too, because it's open till 11 every night, right?
Yeah.
So
I
thanks
didn't
for
realize
doing
that.
that.
That is nice because there's so many places that even just for like a meeting or something in the evening, like before I had an office, and I mean, in the evening, I still sometimes it's easier to just meet somewhere that you can have a bite to eat or get a cup of coffee, and so many places close at like 6 or 7. And
You know
I'm
what
like,
I would love?
I
I'm
need a
just
place that's late.
gonna put this out in the universe. I would like a place to go in the evening where I can take my laptop and have a beer instead of coffee.
Well, I can tell you where to do it. Go to
Where?
the fridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
I'm
The
there.
fridge is my other office. You
Okay.
can ask anyone there. We're there multiple times a week. Partly because I want to go somewhere that isn't my own cafe.
Mhm.
And that is the same type of setting. They have Wi-Fi. They share the password with you freely. They do not mind if you whip out your laptop and work. It depends on the time of day. I mean, I try to be really aware.
Not during
if
rush.
If there are a lot of people
Or not during
there.
like a Barnstormers game. Because it's like
I
right
wouldn't want to be
across.
there when there's a lot of people anyway.
No.
Yeah.
You're probably
No,
good in the
it's a
evenings.
fun place to work.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Snowy days, they have a wood fire.
Stop. I
What?
love fireplaces. That's why I was kind of upset that you got rid of your fireplace. at
Yeah, but
Prince
we never used it anyway.
You're right.
Oh,
but it was
yeah.
just a thought that you
Nostalgia
could.
Yeah, that's why we got rid of it. It took up a lot of space and we never used it. So.
Okay.
These are things that make me want to like move back to the city. My husband always wants to move back to the city. And
You're welcome, Kyle.
Like we used to be able to walk to the fridge. We lived like right over on that side of town. And I'm always like, but don't you like our yard? Like, don't you like our driveway?
Yeah, that is nice. He worked really hard for that yard. It looks great.
Thank you.
Do you ever just ask at restaurants? So I probably pop my laptop out more than I should, but for my workflow, I feel like I have to sometimes be out in a space where there are other people around, or I just get tired.
I need the
lose
energy
focus.
from other people.
Yeah, so I try often to work in restaurants or cafes for that reason. And so the press room's my go-to because they're right across the street from where I live above the cafe.
Okay.
Since I own the building and there's a space on the 3rd floor, I thought I'm going to live here. So the press room is my evening go-to. And I always ask first because I think, I don't know if this restaurant wants the perception of a laptop popped open. Like, even though I'm a paying customer, in theory, they shouldn't care. But if I was an owner, I would have thought about that. Like, if I was a nice restaurant, I might not want laptops. So I always ask. And they're gracious enough, and they do not mind at all. So I've gotten a lot of good work done in the evening at press room.
The environment I really love is that place. I think it's on James Street. It's Italian. I can't believe I can't think of the name. Luca.
I couldn't get work done there, though.
Really?
That's a little too busy. I feel like it's always busy. I was just going to say, it's always so busy.
Okay, I've only been a few times, and it was...
I don't know why I say that, though, because the press room's busy, too. For some reason, the press room works, but they also feel like an extension of my living room.
Okay.
So that's
wait,
like my own relationship with it. I don't live
on the 3rd floor of what building?
Of my building, Prince Street Cafe.
Okay, Prince Street.
Yeah.
Because you also co-own the passenger building,
yes,
right?
That's true.
So are there spaces, before we take a quick break, I feel like you kind of walked us through how you've become involved in all these cafes and kind of acquired all of these things under your umbrella business now, which is commissary. Commons. So I'll get it one of these days. What I wanted to ask though is, like you mentioned, like along with owning these buildings, do you do anything as far as like having to be a landlord? Are you also like managing that part of things? Or do you have someone that does that for you? Like, if there's space for lease in these buildings, I have someone that manages that part of the business.
Kyle my business partner. Kyle does a lot of it.
Okay.
We do it together. We have ideas of like who we want to be there and a lot of personal connections that we do. He handles the administrative side of doing leases, which is amazing. I do in my own building. So I own my building. He owns the one that the commissary is in. The commissary and offices are in, and then we co-own the other things.
Nice.
In fact, this year we're going to open a new space in York. the city of York are going to open a cafe there, and that'll be the first time that we've signed a lease and had a landlord over us. So it's going to be a new experience. We're used to being in control of all of our opportunities. The one at Franklin and Marshall is a unique scenario for sure, but this will be the first time that we've have a lease on the space.
Oh, wow. Are you allowed to say anything else about this cafe?
Yeah, you can ask me any questions.
What's it called? Like. Where's it going to be?
Well, so the reason I was asking what your perception of the name was is because we've always thought that it'd be fun to do a Prince Street Cafe like concept in York. There doesn't seem to be one. There are coffee shops for sure. There's a few of those. There are lots of awesome restaurants, really great breweries, but no one's doing this place where you can drag your laptop in and sit there like what you know Prince Street Cafe to be. So we went round and round on what to name this space. We have a space picked out and everything, and we ended up actually deciding to call it Prince Street Cafe York, in part because we believe it's a concept that people now know what to expect from. It's a brand, and it seems to make sense to carry that brand there rather than try to reinvent the wheel.
I would second it. I think that's a great
idea.
idea.
I'm glad you agree. I've had conflicting viewpoints. Some people are like, well, this is weird. It's on Market Street. The address of it is Market Street. But I think the concept, there are enough people, believe it or not, who drive from York to Lancaster to hang out at Prince Street Cafe and go to the theater or whatever else it is that they do in our city, and they understand it. So when I say I'm doing Prince Street Cafe there, it seems to make sense to the locals that I've talked to there.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. I honestly feel like because I'm not from the city, I think I just thought it was called Prince Street Cafe before I realized, like, oh, it's on Prince Street. Like, I always just thought that was the name of it. Like, I honestly just didn't give it much thought as to, like, why it was called that. Yeah. That was just the thing, kind of like Square One. It's just a staple of, like, where it is. Yeah. So that's really cool. And the question I had wanted to ask you about hiring a few minutes ago was, what does it mean? Explain this business side of things to me. Are all of your businesses, I think one of them is, like, a certified B Corp?
Yeah.
Explain this, because that was a cool concept to me, but I just didn't really know much about it.
Yeah. So for a long time, I've been interested in this idea of every decision we get to make as business owners, we can use to have a level of influence or impact. Every little decision, if we're thoughtful about it, it has an outcome of some sort. So to be mindful about these decisions is really important. So, and having that viewpoint has made me be intentional about where we do sourcing for products, or probably not so much the environmental side, because I just was not educated in how to think about taking care of the environment, and so that's an area that I'm still growing in a lot. But how do we do community engagement? Particularly, how do we take really good care of the people who work for us, recognizing that a lot of the work that we offer is entry-level work. So how can we be strategic with these opportunities? So this was already spinning in my mind, and I feel like I was already in a direction that was intentional, that aligned with B Corp values. Then when I heard about B Corps, I don't know where I stumbled across them. It was years ago. They've been around for a long time.
So it wasn't an Assets?
No.
Okay, it was before that.
No, but Assets was hugely instrumental in getting us certified, because they came along with this like energy behind, let's go through the process of becoming certified. So I had always admired businesses, this idea of like social business, that I would use my business for some good outcome other than just the bottom line and profit, financial profit. And then the B Corp thing is just this roadmap to really say, how do I quantify and how do I get results in all of these categories? Not just the financial gain, but what can I do from a social standpoint? What can I do from an environmental standpoint? How am I being thoughtful about how I'm taking care of my employees? And it's have you done it for your business, the assessment?
I did.
Yeah, I mean, it's an arduous process, because it's like 200 questions to answer.
Oh, wow.
Everything from it's a lot of policy stuff. Like, I can say that I have good intentions, but have I developed policies that actually ensure that my good intentions are going to turn into systems within my business? And even more importantly, someday will it get passed on? Like, will this live beyond me and my good idea, essentially? And they really give you a roadmap for and accountability for making sure that you're actually hitting these good ideas, that in the warm feelings that you might have about taking care of the earth or your people on your team. They make you make it happen. Yeah. And then hold you accountable for it.
So in layman's terms, it's like to be an official, like, socially good business.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then, like you said, there's
business, I think.
Well, you mentioned there's like a whole, like, a questionnaire and all these steps, but it's kind of similar to if you're very small, becoming an LLC. It's like another business step to be certified. You would have to have like a business person help you do it.
Not necessarily. I don't think so.
I would, because I'm not very business savvy. She would.
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say that though, because it wasn't financial questions or complicated business questions. It was things like, for instance, have you ever thought about whether your business will provide maternity and paternity care, and what will your response be for your employees in that category? That's something that a big corporation probably thinks about. That it had never crossed my mind. Would I care for someone who was, going to have a baby, and would I give them time off? Sure, but I didn't have a process at all for it, and I hadn't thought through what can we afford, what makes sense, and let's put this in a policy. Which, when you have it in a policy and your employees come on board and they read that, it means a lot to them, because they see there's been thought put in, towards how you're going to take care of them.
Right. Yeah,
and
that's huge.
On paper.
Mm-hmm.
The hard work is just getting it out of your head onto paper in a way that sounds
And that's what I would need help with.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I have great people on my team. So one of the gals that works with me and has for years and years and cares probably about these things as much or more than I do, her name is Tasha, was super helpful in working us through this process. She just kept on me about it. Crystal, what do we think about this? Crystal, what do we think about that? And then putting it into policies. So
that's really
maybe
cool.
You need a Tasha.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you have to have a business of a certain size to be a B Corp?
No.
That's awesome. Well, I learned something new because I didn't know much about it.
And snoop around. You'll be fascinated by the businesses that are B Corp certified. Patagonia, for instance, is one of the big ones.
Oh, wow.
But there are 17 B Corps in Lancaster City already.
Okay.
Thanks to the work of Assets and promoting.
Ben & Jerry's is one.
Oh. I never knew any of these things. This is so enlightening. And for people that are listening, and again, maybe not be local, can you explain real quick, what's Assets? Mara, can you tell us about that? Because I know you're involved in Assets.
Yeah, so it is a business community that's geared toward minorities and women, and just bringing equity to the city and through business. Crystal might be able to explain it better. She went through it first, right? Or did you just...
They have so many different programs that allow people to access them and be served by them on a lot of different levels. I got to be a part of one of their women's circles initially. I forget, which one did you take?
The Learning Circle.
Okay. Yeah. I think that their goal really is to provide opportunities for people to learn things that may not have just naturally been around them, or access resources. They provide funding. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family that had the wherewithal to allow me to loan money from them, or to give me good advice on how to go get a bank loan. Well, I don't think everyone grows up with that opportunity. So I'm really grateful for it. But I think Assets steps in and says, for those who don't have that naturally around them, we're going to help you with that piece, because that can be part of the make or break as to whether someone's going to be successful. I think we all are born with a drive and an interest and a creativity and an ability to achieve these things. But some of those hurdles, like finance and general business understanding, if you didn't grow up in it, you need someone to teach you that, and they exist for that.
So is Assets free? Because we've mentioned...
Depends how you access them, right?
Right.
Okay.
I want to say that there's a sliding scale. Like, they asked me how much I earned that year before, when I was applying for the Learning Circle, so that they would know what to charge me. Like, they don't want to charge you a lot if you're not making a lot of money. Right. It's very accessible and perfect, I think, for Lancaster City.
Yeah, well, that really is neat. And we've mentioned on the podcast before the SCORE program, which is absolutely free, and that's nationwide.
Right.
So if you don't have an Assets or something in your area, that would be another great way to get the business help that you might need. Like Crystal mentioned, the financial stuff, or just having someone to advise you if you didn't grow up with that. Because I know that's something I'm gracious to my husband's family for, because they've been in business for a long time, but I have not. So
SCORE has been really instrumental in helping me connect with the people that I needed to connect with to grow my business and create a better customer experience too. So I recommend them very often.
Awesome.
I feel like Lancaster is rich with opportunities to help people do the best that they can within their business, regardless of whether you're brand new and dreaming about it or you're developing. Like, I mean, take for instance Inspire. I think Inspire is fantastic then for women who do have businesses going, and they're providing coaching, which is for me a new thing that I started doing this year, was offering business coaching, and Rhonda encouraging me to do that and allowing me to do it under Inspire has been really fun. It's something I always wanted to do, and now I'm getting to do it for the first time. And I think, you know, there's assets, there's Score. There are a lot of fun ways that you can get support if you're an entrepreneur.
I really appreciated Inspire's mastermind group. Just having that accountability of 6 other women who are in business and getting their feedback, hearing what was working for them, what wasn't working, and then sharing resources with them. That was instrumental in my business growth too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I will definitely make sure all of these big organizations, like we've mentioned, that you can go to for support or get involved if you're local. I'll be sure that those are in the show notes. You can also find them on our website. So be sure to check that out later. And we will be right back after a quick break.
Hey Thrivers, we wanted to take a quick break to just say thank you. Thank you for listening to our show. And we were wondering if you could do a favor for us. If you've enjoyed listening to our episodes, whether you are just tuning in for the first time or you have been listening since episode number 1, would you review us on iTunes? Would you leave us a positive review or your feedback? Reviews not only help us establish our online credibility and grow our online presence, they help us reach new audiences. They allow us to reach new potential guests and sponsors. And we love hearing what you have to say about the show or the episodes that stood out to you or maybe inspired you or just really resonated with you. So if you've enjoyed listening, do us that favor. Write us a review today, and we'll be sharing upcoming reviews on each of our episodes. Thanks, guys.
Welcome back. We are chatting today with Crystal Weaver, who is the owners of various cafes downtown and the umbrella company, Commons Company. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting it. So it's been so fun picking your brain today, just because I feel like you have so many different experiences. And I've actually had a few women reach out to me when they found out you were going to be on the podcast. And Nicole Taylor was one of them. Or Vasquez, she owns Nicole Taylor Boutique. Yeah. And she was like, oh, I have to listen to that one. I'm going to subscribe. So shout out. She's also local, owns a women's boutique. But I told her I would ask you some questions for her. And one of the things I would love to know, as your businesses were growing, when did you decide that you needed to delegate things? Like, how did you know when it was okay to hire someone? Or, you know, should they be part-time? Should they be full-time? There's a lot that goes into delegating and hiring and bringing on a team.
I don't have a magic formula for that. I wish I did. But I think it's important to note that I've always been interested in this idea of working on my business and not in it so much. So I did start, you know, for the first 5 years, I was very involved at Prince Street. I was there every day. I was managing it. But I was also interested in this idea of my business being able to flourish without me having to physically be present, and playing around with what does it look like to delegate, and not just delegate a task, but how do I delegate my vision to other people, so that, because it's not just this functional thing like do this, this, and this, and then it's a success. Particularly for a hospitality company, there's like vision and there's warmth and all these other things that have to come about. So a great book that I had read that was helpful in that time period was E-Myth. Are you familiar with E-Myth? It's a really fun book because it's a story, but it has great principles in it as well. Along this idea of, it's this gal who starts out baking and she just loves to bake pies, and then her business gets so crazy that, you know, she has to make these transitions, and how to figure out how to have joy in this business that is no longer this thing that you actually started it for, like you had fun making those pies back in the day. So for me, having read that book and having this intention of, I want to get to this place where I can grow and I can give people really meaningful employment and allow them to be in management positions and have that fulfill a dream of theirs, meanwhile allowing me to move on and start new things, was pretty intentional and in my head from the beginning. That does not mean that it was easy. I think delegating is one of the hardest things that I do, even to this day, after 12 years of practicing it.
Right.
I think that if I could share any tips related to that, it would be that if you can put things on paper, document the things that you do. But then also if you can co-think with those around you who are working with you and have them be a part of the process of all the things you're doing, not just on a functional task level, but on a thought level, it engages them to the point where then they continue to carry out the visionary side of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're giving them an opportunity to invest in, I don't know how to describe it.
Maybe emotionally invest or put their own minds into it.
And make them feel valued. I feel like they'll take more pride in what they're doing and how they're treating people if they know like, oh, this is something I had a say in. So is this something like on the tangible, like practical level, something you could do like in monthly meetings or like with your like managerial staff? Like how did you kind of like make this happen?
Well, I think it grows, like it really is, there is no magic bullet, no perfect meeting thing that makes this happen. It's over time, the small things that you do as a leader that create a following. So I have 85 employees now. When I was at Prince Street in the very beginning, I had maybe 17. But starting with those 17 and creating followership and a team of that felt like we were in it together and they were helping me think about the experience that we were creating allowed that entity to still self-perpetuate in that same place, even though I am not there anymore. And I just stop in and grab coffee in the mornings and I connect with the managers. Sure, we connect once a week whenever as needed to make sure that operations are still functioning well. And I'm still a part of who we hire and their decisions about who they're going to hire in their stores. But that it wasn't this one big thing. It was incrementally moving along and continuing to lead in a way that connected with people so that they wanted to perpetuate our vision.
But you're still doing what you love. Whereas if I were to hire someone to do organizing, I would be doing more of the business stuff. Okay, so I would have to hire someone to do the business stuff so I could keep organizing because that's what I love to do. But what you're doing is you're having people carry on your vision for a place while you get to continue doing the business side and choosing what you invest in, how you invest in the city, that kind of stuff.
Because that's what I love. So that's like actually it's a really great example because not everyone is wired the same. For me, what I love, like I don't know if you remember me saying earlier, I'm not a maintainer. I like to start new things. So what is fun in it for me is starting new things.
What is your Enneagram number?
I'm 7, 8, and 9, all very, very close.
Okay.
I would say I identify most with 8.
Okay. Yeah.
Who knows? I actually, to be honest, I don't know much. I took the test. I read it. I was like, interesting. Okay, this is where I think I fall. And
I can see that, though. I mean, I don't know as much about 9s, but I know, like, 8s are, like, go-getters. Aren't 8s, like, powerful? Yeah. But 7s are the ones that are always, like, on to the next idea. And so maybe that's where you kind of get your drive for, but you stick things out and then when you're ready, on to the next thing, which is cool.
Do you remember what 9s are?
Is it 9 the peacemaker?
Yes. And this is exactly a good description of how I say that I'm probably one of the most chill-driven people you'll ever meet in the sense that I have to be doing something new and I have a lot of energy towards the things I'm doing, but I'm also really like, chill.
I was telling Brittany, you're probably a very healthy 8 is what you are.
You guys were discussing.
Yes, we were discussing your Enneagram number.
I need Brittany to help me understand it a bit better. I use the Strength Finder assessment a lot. Have you ever done the Strength Finder?
Do you use that stuff to hire people too?
Sometimes, yeah. Actually, for management. I haven't in a long time. I think maybe about the time I say I'm getting better at hiring. I better not say it. I was going to say I'm getting better at hiring and I don't need those anymore. I have hired a lot of people over the years, and you do start to learn to know what to look for in people, particularly in customer service. So my latest thing is if I don't feel like we have easy conversation within the first 30 to 40 seconds of spending time with you, you're probably not great at customer service. Because at the cafe, you're constantly engaging with people that you don't know. That's part of your job. And if you can't make that connection in a short period of time, you're not going to be amazing at front of house stuff. Sure, you could be an awesome person. and you probably convinced me of that 5 minutes into our conversation, but what I'm looking for is those people who are just really magnetic, right?
Yeah, have that charm.
Which I am actually not. I always tell people I wouldn't hire myself for that job. I'd rather be doing things.
Where was that, or what was the name of that, the test you said? Strength Finder?
Finders, yeah, it's done by Gallup.
Okay.
You can find it online.
So Google it. And I will do my best to find it as well and add it to our show notes here.
Sure.
I'm afraid we might lose Mara in a few minutes here. So I just wanted to ask like one more or two more questions. If you, like you were mentioning, there's no magic recipe to hiring. But what would you advise if someone was in a position where they weren't sure if they should take that leap and hire someone or not hire someone? Is there like a point where you're like, okay, if this is where you're at, you probably should make the jump. You probably should bring someone on.
I mean, the easy answer would be to say, look at your finances. Can you afford it? But then the complicated side of that actual advice is that sometimes hiring someone will enable you to move to the next bracket of making sales. So I think more importantly is knowing what's your end game. You know, for you referenced that you want to keep organizing and that's important to you. So your hire would be on the administrative side, but you probably even have a vision for how big do you really want this to be? Is the joy in growing it, or is the joy in creating something that's just meaningful and sustainable and manageable? So for me, it's fun to grow things and continue to build things, and I'm not afraid of hiring people. I enjoy that. So I'll stay in that track as long as that makes sense. For me, I do think it's different in every situation. You kind of have to know. I would say this. I think it's so important to have advice along the way. Go to something like Assets. Have a business coach. I've always had either a therapist or a business coach in my life, probably for the last decade. And I believe in it. It makes me grow as a person, as a business person. It's kept me on track in so many ways, and it's someone to kick these things around with.
Yeah.
And really, I think your best decisions get made when you kind of know the direction that you're going.
Right. That's so true.
So get your direction down on paper.
Yeah, and I'm not a 5 or 10-year goal kind of girl. I am a lot more about a direction. Like what feels right, what's like meaningful, that. What are the opportunities that come up along the way that fit with what I know to be true about what's meaningful?
Yeah, it
doesn't work for everyone. Some people are so
But for my personality, like I know Rhonda always has a 5-10 year goal, and I'm like, amazing. I love that, and I see she's kicking ass, but I'm like, I can't do that. I feel like that's limiting for me, and I feel a little claustrophobic. So giving me permission to just have a direction, which I don't necessarily have, but now I'm like, okay, that I can do. That sounds exciting.
The fun with that is that things get to come on the scene that you were not anticipating.
Yeah.
As long as you are able to filter things and say,
does this fit in with my vision?
Yeah.
For the
I like that a lot. It actually reminds me a little bit of something a friend told me recently. And she's also a working, I was going to say working mom. She's not a mom. She's just doing her thing. She's a designer. Yeah. And so she works from home like myself. And her and I were talking about just the directions that we want to go in. And her comment was, sometimes you have to say a bunch of little no's in order to say a big yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you don't have that direction, it can be easy to just kind of say yes to this or yes to that. And those things can sometimes get you off the right path. But I think keeping your eye on like where you want to go kind of empowers you to say no to things that, like you said, aren't a good fit. Yeah. So that I think if you're doing what you need to do to stay in the path that you want to be on, like if you're on that trajectory, you're going to run into the right opportunities.
Yeah.
And those are like the big yeses. So, yeah.
Oh, that was great.
Oh, I love it when something comes like full circle. So before I almost called you Rhonda.
You do that all the time.
I know. And for anyone listening, Rhonda,
I'll take it.
Rhonda is the founder of Inspire Business Community, and so we all know her. And I don't know why I call you that sometimes. But before you have to get going, Mara, I would love to know favorite things. And I want to know your favorite thing because I don't know if it's coffee or tea, but we've been talking a lot about business. So favorite thing of the week that might not be business related.
Ooh, okay, not business related. You know that I'm a very introspective and spiritual person. And I have been loving the Robcast lately. I listened to it a few years ago and stopped. And I just picked it up recently, like within the last year. And I am just learning so much and appreciate his open-mindedness. And yeah, it's encouraging. So
Didn't you just tell me it's the only one you don't listen to on 1.5 speed?
You're right. It's the only one I listen to at regular speed.
That's awesome.
So
where can people find this?
Oh man, I guess I listened to it on iTunes, and it's just called the Robcast with Rob Bell.
Nice. What about you? What would your favorite thing be? Do you have a favorite thing right now? It could be like a product. It could be like your new nail polish.
That's funny because I'm not into nail polish.
Well, I noticed your orange nails over there.
Yeah.
I don't even have mine painted.
This is the nicest you'll ever see that. I don't have a favorite thing, but I did just have a new experience that I'm kind of into. I just had the opportunity to travel to Jordan, so first time to the Middle East. But on that trip, I got to visit an eco lodge, which is a hotel, and I learned that this is a thing around the world.
Okay. So
you can Google this, but there's this whole new way of traveling, and that is where you're keeping the environment in mind. And these hotels are run completely off the grid. So no electricity whatsoever. And this particular place I went to, there's no way they could have had electricity because it was in the middle of the desert, and it's not like you saw power lines anywhere. But this beautiful lodge in the middle of the desert, the basic needs that you have run off of solar, but everything else was candles at night and just 100% off the grid.
Did you go by yourself?
Super awesome experience.
So you went to the Middle East for the very first time, and you chose to stay in a place in the middle of nowhere with no electricity.
Well, there's more backstory to it than that. There is, but by virtue of this, I'm on a board that does some global development things, and they had been behind the installation of the solar panel. The cool part of this story also is that this lodge was created as a way to allow the people who are living off the land in this desert to not have to move to the city to survive, so giving them opportunities for employment.
Oh, that's really cool.
So the whole lodge is run by locals who invite you to be a part of their lives. We got to go out into one of their tents that they live in, and they did a coffee ceremony with us. Coffee ceremonies are a thing in Africa. I've experienced them. They're very different in the Middle East, all very tied to deep relational things, which was so cool for me to get to experience because coffee obviously near and dear to me, as well as my belief that it fosters a relationship, and like that's a fun thing that can happen in cafes. So I got to experience this out in the tent in the middle of nowhere.
That is really cool.
So if I could just like throw something out there for you to investigate, it would be this idea that you could travel and stay at a place that's completely off the grid, and it can be an enjoyable experience. It's not primitive.
Okay.
Despite what it sounds.
Yeah, no, it actually really sounds beautiful. Really cool. But I'm like, wait, first time in the Middle East, it's not always the most stable region of the world.
Jordan is.
But Jordan is, okay.
Yeah, and it's an easy place to travel to. English is their second language.
Oh, okay.
They're fairly developed. They have Uber.
Then I just need to research
certain things
Jordan.
that make you feel sort of, like you could get around on your own.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I will finish up with my favorite thing because I'm a little OCD about cleaning. I was recently invited to a Norwex party, and let me tell you.
Are you a believer?
I'm a believer.
Oh, they have the weirdest feeling, though.
Oh, they've changed my life. Feeling? Yes. At first, it was a little bit weird. But let me tell you, now that I've started cleaning with, like, this EnviroCloth thing, I go to wipe my counters or something with, like, any other just, like, dish rag, and I'm like, this is not the same. It works really well.
Do you use this? No.
Oh, man. My friend, it's not like I was going because she sells it or something. Like, she actually is a believer. So she's been telling me like, okay, this stuff works.
Yeah.
And she just so happened to get one of them as like a gift or something. I don't even remember the lady that threw the party. So I'm not trying to promote anyone here. I am just telling you for my own OCD purposes. I have really enjoyed their different products. I also got like the bath scrubby mitt. And it's really good for like, we have glass doors in our bathroom versus like a curtain, which you can just swap out if it gets gross every few months. I feel like I couldn't find something to keep them clean. And anyway, shout out Norwex because I'm a believer now. And that's been my favorite thing of the week, which is kind of lame. But if you have a house, you might like them.
I don't think it's lame. I'm going to try it.
You should. You should. And I mean, I have a catalog now and it's got all this stuff in it. And my husband's like, how much are you going to spend on cleaning things?
You're like, do you know me there?
I know. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like you just shared so many like wise little tidbits for anyone that has a business or is in those phases of growing.
I'm feeling inspired.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for co-hosting today, Mara.
Thanks for letting me, Christine, thanks for letting me co-host again. It's so much fun.
Well, in case no one's told you today yet, moms, you're doing amazing. And stay tuned. We have some more exciting interviews coming up in our next few episodes.
Thank you so much for listening today. You are a part of a growing community of moms, business owners, and women who are here to encourage and inspire. You can connect with Rachel at Rachel Klein Creative on Instagram or rachelkleincreative.com. To keep up with Christine and her latest events, follow her business journey on Instagram at Bellenberry Co. And if you want to be first to know about upcoming guests and giveaways, sign up for the Thrive Podcast email list today. Simply visit rachelkleincreative.com/The Thrive Podcast or follow at The Thrive Podcast on Instagram. If you've enjoyed listening this week or you've already added our show to your favorites playlist, we'd love for you to write us a review on iTunes. Your support and positive feedback allows us to keep encouraging moms and business owners each week.